Get warm. Dun, dun, dun. Let's make some noise. Tonight we're going to talk about camshafts, specifically of 3 or 4 different camshafts, but 3 of them from Brian Tooley Racing. And we're going to talk about the Truck Norris cam, the Hot Rod cam, and the Red Hot cam. So I got some information. I'm going to put a poll up here. I'm going to go ahead and put something up here. Let's see. So for our poll will be okay, so the question for the poll for tonight is, does Brian Tooley Racing need to make a cam smaller than the Truck Norris, aka the Truck Norris Junior, let's call it, for the 4.8 liter or other applications where guys might want, good sizable gains through most of the curve, but, with better idle quality or those kinds of things. Although Brian, I talked to him today and yesterday, and he wants me to come out and ride in a 4.8 that has a Truck Norris in it, that drives like a stock one. So apparently there's a great deal to be learned, or there's a great deal of, tuning that needs to go into making the thing work. And a part of the problem is that obviously whether or not the camshaft is going to idle properly and go into gear and do all that stuff, a great deal of that is a tune, not just the camshaft. We know that going in, but I'd still like to see, I'd like to ride in one or drive one that has that kind of camshaft, but also has, good drivability and stuff. So, but I still personally, I would like to see a smaller camshaft than that. I'd like to see something where we can shift the curve backward a little bit and maybe get some even more low speed power. The Truck Norris is very good at that, but I would like to do even more than that. So let me know if you think we should see, if you guys would like to see something even smaller than that, but with the same kind of technology applied to that, because that one's a little bit unique. But what we're going to talk about tonight is I found something interesting, and we've covered this, we've touched on this a little bit before, not on the live feed, but in some of the videos that I did. In fact, I probably will be doing another video on this because it's good stuff. So I have dyno results from when I first started running the L33, the aluminum 5.3 that I got from the junkyard. When we first started running that, I ran it when it was in stock trim. And when it was in stock trim, it made 365 horsepower and 389 foot-pounds. After we put valve springs in it, and then we ran it with a Truck Norris cam, the power output jumped to 424 horsepower. So it picked up quite a bit of power. It picked up like 60 horsepower at the peak and a little bit more farther out past the power peak. And the torque jumped up to 414-ish foot-pounds of torque. We also ran, while we were testing various things, we also ran the Hot Rod cam, which the peak power jumped up from 424, which we made with the Truck Norris cam, to 450. So that cam added another 25 or 26 horsepower, but peak torque, exactly the same, 414 foot-pounds. It might be 414.7 and 414.3 or whatever, but we're wiggling around within 1 foot-pound or so. Then we ran the even bigger Red Hot cam, and that only picked up a little bit of power, 454, 455 horsepower. And obviously we're talking about this tonight. The torque number, again, 414 foot-pounds of torque. So all of these things, these 3 cams, the Truck Norris cam, the Hot Rod cam, and the Red Hot cam, obviously the stock cam was much, much milder than all of these, but all of these cams made within 1 foot-pound of torque in terms of peak of each other. But because they made the same peak torque doesn't mean that the cams are the same or that the power curve is the same through the rest of the curve, because they're definitely not. We see that, if we compare the I'm going to go ahead and bring these up. You guys won't be able to see it, but I'll be able to talk about it. So if we look at the So if we look at the stock cam, the truck nurse cam, and the hot rod cam, the red hot cam compared to the hot rod cam just did a little bit better at the very, very top, lost a little power down low, was not really a good choice, I don't think, for this particular combination. And we'll talk about that. But again, it did make the same peak torque. But if we look at the truck doors cam, the truck doors cam was better than the stock cam basically everywhere from 3,000 on out. It seemed like it dropped a little bit below that. James and Brian tell me when they run it on their dyno that it doesn't do that, but it seems to do that when I run it here. But it offers a lot of torque. I mean, it's over 400 foot-pounds for a pretty broad amount, and that works pretty well. And then it went on to make 424 horsepower. And then on the hot rod cam, which is bigger, 217 cam, I think. Yeah, 212, 217, and then 221 for the red hot cam. So the hot rod cam picked up a pretty good bit of power on the truck Norris cam, but did it, from about 4,900 on out. So from 5,000 to 6,500 or 6,700, however high, 7,000, however high you want to rev it, it makes more power than the truck Norris cam. Below that point, 4,800 and below, the truck Norris cam makes more torque, and the truck Norris cam did a lot better than the stock cam too, which is something that we would expect. But the two cross over like right at 4,800 or so, where they're making the same peak torque. So it's an interesting thing, and this is one of the reasons why I don't just give people peak numbers, and why looking at curves and understanding them helps you better understand how the camshaft is going to work in your combination. And when you look at these, when I look at these, I immediately think, okay, here's my trade-off. The trade-off in these two cams is much like the trade-off that we see when we talk about a short runner or a long runner manifold, or a single plane or a dual plane manifold. At some point, this trade-off thing is inherent in the design. I mean, it'd be nice to have a dual runner intake manifold or variable cam timing, so we can have both of these. But the only way to have both of these is not to advance or retard the cam. You actually would have to have VTEC to have that, to have different cam profiles. So that would be nice, and have variable cam. All of that would be ideal, but that's not reality. So what happens is we're stuck with this kind of trade-off. So the thing is, where do you want your power? Like, what curve do you want? That's why I've done so many tests with so many different cams and can steer people. And that's why when people ask me, hey, what's the best cam? I can't really answer that, because if you take a 5.3 and the only thing that you're going to do to it is a cam, that's an important point, because if you're doing other things, then other things will happen. But if all you're going to do is a cam, people want to know, well, what cam should I put in it? Well, look at there. Which one of those do you like better? Some of you may like, oh, look, I want all of that torque below 5,000 RPM. That's all that I care about. I have it in a truck. This thing shifts at 5,500 or whatever, and I'm not going to raise the rev limiter to 6,500 and take a chance on hurting the transmission or whatever. Whatever your reasoning is. But I don't determine whatever your reasoning is. So in these cam profiles, if I told you, yeah, the truck Norris cam makes 424 and the hot rod cam makes 450. Oh, well, I definitely want the 450 one. And then it might cement that further. Hey, they both make the same torque. They both make the same peak torque. Oh, well, if they're making the same torque and one of them makes a lot more power, I definitely want the one that makes a lot more power. Yes. And that sounds good. And it sounds like the thing that we should want. And there's logic there. But when you look at the curve and it's laid out, you go, oh, yeah, just the fact that this point they were the same, and up here one's making more power. But what was happening down here? Well, you're losing power. And so if you did an acceleration test, where you started at whatever the stall speed is, the truck Norris is going to be faster, because it makes more average power probably up to, we'd have to look and see. I'd have to go back and look. That's going to be an interesting thing now that I think about that. Average power, probably up to 5,500 or more, the truck Norris, because it makes more low speed power, makes more average power. But here's the other thing: when we're talking, we're going to do live long and prosper. But the other thing to think about is, you're only, if you're accelerating the vehicle, assuming that that's your big criteria, is that how you're choosing the cam? Is it which one of these is faster in the quarter mile? Is that your thing? Or do you want it to be driver, when are you going to be using the power curve that you want to use? If this is a track only thing, then you would pick the bigger cam, because you would put a stall converter, you put gears in it, and the area where the smaller cam is better is going to be all but zeroed out, because it would only do that in the first gear. After it shifts at 6,500 or 7,000 or wherever you want to shift at, after it shifts from that into second gear, you're never going to be in the lower part of the curve anymore. You're only going to be there on the stall and the launch. And then as soon as you get past that, it's going to be all the top end stuff. And because you're using 3 gears, I guess, with the bigger cam, more power thing, and you're taking a stall speed converter where you've gotten rid of a lot of where that extra gain was from, then for an acceleration contest, the bigger cam is the way to go. But is that your criteria? Is that the only thing that you care about? For most of us, if we're driving around, most guys, like for a truck cam, they care about power up to 5,500 RPM. And in that area would be where something like a truck Norris would shine. And I think from talking to Brian that I told him, yes, I think that they should make a smaller than truck Norris cam, like a truck Norris Junior, because it would be interesting to see if we slid that back, if we could chop off the area that fewer people care about, especially with a truck Norris cam, because a truck Norris cam is going to be something that a guy is going to be much more likely to be a daily driver kind of thing than it is a race thing. Although, as we've seen, particularly with that truck Norris cam, if you add a turbo to that, it does wonders, just like it does with every other cam. You can add a blower to it, you add nitrous to it, just like all the other cams. And it works very well for that. In fact, that's usually the cam that I recommend for people that are putting together like a 5.3 and you want to run a turbo on it, you're on the street, it's going to have good low speed response. Maybe a smaller cam, maybe even better, maybe better drivability. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But the point of all this is if we take a look at it and we only give a few data points, like with this peak torque thing, look, all of these cams made the same peak torque, but they made wildly different power curves. They made different peak horsepower numbers as well. But why is that? Why did they all make the same peak torque? Is there something else that's creating that? And that would be the next thing that we would think about. Well, in this particular combination, we had a 5.3 as an aluminum one, has a flat top piston. This one had I think 799 heads on it, so it's got a little bit more airflow, obviously, than a 706 or an 862 head. It has the early truck intake manifold on it. We did have long tube headers on it, and we had an optimized tune for all these. Now, they all wanted to run the same timing, and they were all run with the same air fuel. So the question becomes, are we artificially producing these peak torque results based on the other things that we're running? And at first I would say yes, because I think that the long runner truck intake manifold is dictating some of that result. But when I'm going to go back now and look and see, and maybe we'll talk about this tomorrow, I'm going to go back and look and see if I've run all 3 of these cams with a different combination, maybe with something that had more cylinder head or more a different intake manifold or something. Because maybe with more intake manifold, we would allow these things to stretch their legs a little bit, and maybe we would see some disparity in torque. Honestly, I don't think we will. I don't think it would be that different. I think we're looking at we're getting near where you have a pretty healthy, specific torque output relative to our amount of displacement and compression and stuff. And I think we're pretty good there. I'll take a look and see what happens when I put the fast intake manifold on there and see if we've not just shifted it out, but have we shifted it up a little bit too? This is the kind of stuff that I live for. So, and a lot of times when I'm going over this stuff, like I'm doing now, it makes me think of other things that I want to check and more things that I want to learn. And then we have a better understanding of it. And then hopefully I can convey all that stuff to you. So you guys let me know. Let's see what's going on with our poll. Does BTR need to make a cam smaller than the Truck Norris for the 4.8 and 5.3? 55%, yes, but split in a way that I didn't think it would be. That's interesting. So maybe the poll should have been, what do you guys think? Do you think that something else was creating, like I was just talking about? Do you think that something else is creating the same peak torque phenomenon on these 3 different cams? This is something else responsible for that, and not just that these cams all make the same peak torque. Is something else doing this? Is something else doing that? So let's we'll get to our comments here. What's up, everybody? Been watching all your videos, learning so much. Good. It's good to see you here. Yeah, I'm up late. Yeah, this is late for me. I'm running LS3 stage 2 VR and an LS3. Got a 79 short bed with an LS5.3 and a 5-speed swap. Just got an 80 millimeter turbo for it. So should be enough power for you. Richard, what's your opinion on ACE's fuel injection? I've never tried it, so I don't really have an opinion on it. What's the duration at 50 of the Truck Norris cam? 212. Quick question. Just bought a 2000 Dodge Durango with a 5.9 Magnum and 4.6 RE trans. What will make first gear go all the way to 5,000 before shifting? Where is it shifting now? And that probably isn't that trans computer controlled. If it's computer controlled, you probably could go in and reprogram it. I have a Red Hot cam currently being installed in the Camaro LS1. What can I expect? I have lots of Red Hot cam videos up, so you can see what happens when we tested it. The cam makes good power. So weird. I was just getting ready to order a Truck Norris cam for my LS1 swap. So daily driver. Wondering about drivability. A Truck Norris cam on an LS1 on a 5.7 will definitely be drivable. Very, very drivable. I'm running an LS3 Red Hot cam in an LS3. That's fine. That's actually what the cam was designed for. And the guys from Brian Tooley have revised those cams again, because the cool thing that I like about them is they're always looking for ways to try to improve them. And so they have some new versions, I think, coming out. Are the cams running similar LSAs? No, they're not. The Truck Norris cam is a much tighter LSA, but the LSA doesn't tell you nearly the information that you need to know about the camshaft, because it doesn't tell you the actual valve events. I'm doing LS3 6L90 swap and a Crown Vic. Cool. Police Interceptor. Finally got to see the inside of a John Deere blower. Twin screw blower. Cool. Are those around? Can people find those? Taylor, what's going on? They need to start making tighter LSA cams for LS engine ranges. This has been proven time and time again that an LSA around 107 to 108 outperforms any other LSA cam. If you think that camshafts, that the power produced by camshaft is a function of the LSA, then you have a lot more that you need to learn about camshafts. I'm in Australia building an LC9 stock stroke ported 706 forge rods and pistons, turbo 400, 3500 stall, 3.4. Trying to decide on a cam, looking for 800 horsepower at the tire. So Adam, what are you doing to get it to 800 horsepower at the tire? Did you say something earlier about a turbo or something? You should try testing Howard's or Isky LS cams, the Radlers and the Isky speeds. I would like to do. I like the guys from Isky. I don't know that I may have run one or two Howard's cams, because they the guys from Speedmaster way back had some of the Howard's cams and some of their stuff. And so I ran some, but the Isky makes a lot of good products. Taking Engine Master small cam test, the 212 cam looked to be a good truck cam on a 383, and the 200 cam lost a lot of torque. Does the smaller 4.8 bring the point that it loses down low? I don't know. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a smaller cam. I've run lots of small cams in the near 200 degrees of duration, 208, 206, lots of stuff like that. I would like to try that. In this test, when we ran the 5.3, it's obvious from this particular test that the red hot cam didn't add really much. Like I wouldn't ever go from the hot rod cam to the red hot cam in the 5.3 if that's all that I was doing. I'd much rather have the hot rod cam. Just got me an 05 Silverado 2500, has 6-liter LQ4, suggested upgrades. Can be used to pull trailer to races and larger loads. Car can't carry. Most guys on the LQ4s, they'll do a cylinder head upgrade on it to have a little more compression, either a 799 head or a 706 head if you want to add a lot of compression to that. A small cam in it is a good idea. Long tube headers. Calvin installed the 4200 in 2010 SS Camaro with a 25.5 cage and a 9-inch IRS setup for his dad. Cool. Richard 218 212 cam with a 110 LCA is close to what was used in the early small block Fords. Don't need too much cam because the heads are free flowing. Are you talking about the? First of all, that's a reverse split cam, which I don't know why you would do that. And then, are you talking about the Ford has a free flow? The stock 5-liter Ford has a free flowing head. I believe Melling has a baby cam they call Stage 1 that's barely over stock. Yeah, I mean, there's more to it than just making it. If stock is like on an LM7 is 191 or 190 at 50. If you just make it 200, that's that's going to do something, but that's not the same as testing a whole bunch of cams to try to find out what actually works. Since the 3.9 Magnum is the same thing as the 5.2 Magnum, can you take a camshaft out of a stroker or out of a 5.2 and cut it just right to work on the 3.9? I don't know. Is the firing order the same on the 3.9? So anyone tested how much power a Chevy SM465 4-speed can handle? Came out of a C30. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that transmission. Oh, the LSA guys are funny. You need to have a tight LSA. The truck Norris cam's 107 already. Where is it you want to go with that? How much horsepower and torque? Okay. How much horsepower and torque can I achieve with a red hot cam on a Camaro with duals, headers, SLP intake, and tune? I don't know. I'd never run the red hot cam on a 5.7. Oh, I just Taylor, I had a bunch of stuff to do tonight, so I was just now able to get on. 5.3 has a pretty free-flowing head compared to a small block Ford. I reckon a 218 212 would be a great performer. I disagree with that. I disagree with a reverse split cam. I don't think that that's a good idea. I mean, it will be better than stock, but I don't think you're going in the right direction. A 212 218 would probably be better. Forgot to say twin 6255 Pulsar turbos. Trying to scroll back and see. Adam, you're the one that was asking the question. Trying to scroll back. Oh, an LC9 stock stroke. 800 at the tire with those turbos. You can put any camshaft in it you want. I mean, a Truck Norris cam will easily do that. Taylor, you just pulled the dash in the Silverado? In the Rado. What year is that Silverado? Does it have door panels that will fit on my 2002? $212, $218. I was wondering. That's unusual. I mean, it's not unheard of. People do that. In fact, if you look at turbo cams from a lot of manufacturers, that's the direction that they go. But a 212 218 cam is like a what is that? Is that a stage 1 truck cam, I think? GRW, you're tearing down LS2 that recently did a heads cam intake. Turns out something happened to the gasket, so having to do head gaskets again. Oh, that's a bummer. It's an 06, okay. I think I'll have to look and see what color mine are. Does the VIN number show what the interior color is? LS3 76 525. I swapped the AFR heads. Should I also swap the ASA cam? Is that a Steve? Is that a rec port headed combination? I would think on 376 it would be. If it is a rec port, I probably wouldn't put the heads on, and then I would just change the cam. The RPO codes will show your interior color. What I miss on the same torque differential for conundrum? You need a quick review. Turbo 400 has the vacuum kick down. The aftermarket module is adjustable. That's a nice feature, though. Pro code. Yep. That's like a bro code. I have a Slumdog. I have an LQ9 and my rock crawler backed by a Turbo 400 with a 2500 stall converter. Will the Truck Norris cam fire up and run good enough on stock tune to get it in the trailer for down session? Yeah, in fact, it'll drive around. Sean, you looked up the John Deere blower. Is it nothing from John Deere is inexpensive? What would happen if you had a bypass valve on a turbo? Spools, but air is blowing to the outside like a blow-off valve. It doesn't, you can't make the turbo work like a blower. And that sounds like what you're trying to do. The turbo is going to spool up based on exhaust energy. And if you're not adding boost into the motor, you reduce the amount of exhaust energy you have to spool the turbo. So the turbo doesn't just spool by itself because of RPM. And having it be, I don't know why are you doing it mile an hour related? Made 488 wheel horsepower on the chassis dyno. GRW, I've already forgotten what your combination is. Oh, on an LS2. Is this in a manual transmission car? I would think it would be. Andy, you're putting together a 454. First complete assembly. Doesn't always go smoothly, does it? No, it does not. That's the thing I hate about putting. Now, I mean, I love putting motors together. I like just like I like all the things like mowing the lawn. It's you go out, you get it done, and you do, you go back and forth on the lines and everything, and then it's done. I like that. I like putting stuff together when I'm building motors. I like putting it together. I hate not having all the things that I need to get the thing together and then having to stop, especially if I have to go to the store again to get the new stuff to make it, a gasket or fitting or bushing or whatever it is I need. A P2 centrifugal supercharger. Have you ever seen one? What is a P2? Is it some sort of procharger? Do you check or replace the oil barbell when you grab a motor from the wrecking yard? No. We didn't do anything to the... If I tear them down for some reason, then yeah, we do that. We take that out if we're going to clean the block and all that stuff. But a lot of times the motors go from like that, like the L33 just goes from the wrecking yard onto the dyno. And we just put oil in it, new oil and filter. Sometimes we don't even change the plugs or anything. We just try to run it and see what happens. Trying to make a custom stroker for the 3.9 Magnum by using the 5.2 Magnum stroker motor. Will test use the camshaft for chop. Love it. Okay. So you're trying to do a stroker motor for the 3.9? Having my 5-liter small Ford rebuilt with an extreme energy cam, you recommend to be close to the... For the gentleman that's putting the 274 cam in, that's not going to idle like a stock cam does. You'll know that you have a camshaft in. I drove mine all the time when I was young, younger. But so that's a big enough cam to know that you have a cam in it. If you want something that's more idle friendly, then put a smaller camshaft in it. Possible future test, horsepower loss from clutch fan versus electric. I've tested a clutch fan before, and we tested the fan versus not having the fan. The guys from Engine Masters or Hot Rod or one of those places did a fan test on the chassis dyno, and it's a lot, especially if the fan is engaged all the way, like a mechanically coupled fan. It takes a lot of power to drive. In fact, I'm going to do a test on that on my truck where we put an electric fan assembly on it and an electric water pump, and then see if I can get better fuel mileage. Andy, did you miss my LSA question, or are you avoiding them? Why would I avoid questions? Use the camshaft off the 5.2 stroker. So I'm confused. Is your 318 not a 318? The 5.2, that's what a 318 is. Is it some stroker version of a 5.2? Because the camshaft doesn't care that it's a stroker. So you just want to put some sort of 5.2 cam and cut it off. Then it would technically be a 3/4 race cam. You won't be able to do that. The reason that you won't be able to cut it off like that, you could cut it and weld it back together, but it needs to have all the bearing journals in the right spot. And I don't know how the 3.9, if it does that. So it's more than just getting one thing you have to do is get all of the lobes to line up with their respective lifters. And then also the camshaft has to, if the front of the camshaft is the same, like the timing gear bolts on all the same, has a cam retaining plate, all of that stuff works, that's fine. But the back of the cam also has to work too. So just cutting it off will not engage the back of the cam into the rear journal or the rear cam journal or the rear cam bearing. I don't think, unless just cutting it off is the end of, and that's where it is, and it goes in just right. So look at it. I don't know. I don't know what the inside of that 3.9 looks like. Speaking of noticing a cam, do you think 219 at 50 will be noticeable? It will be noticeable in terms of power production. That kind of duration change relative to a stock cam will definitely make quite a bit of power. I mean, even the 212 on the Truck Norris cam that we've been talking about tonight, that makes a big difference in power. I mean, it made 60 horsepower. I'll go back and see what your question was. Did you have was it a lobe separation angle question or something? Let's see if I missed it. If I had to guess, if it's a lobe separation angle question, is a tighter LSA better? Something like that, right? I have some questions about LSA to make sure I understand it right. Oh, people. The main thing I've seen, including your test, is a tighter LSA can add mid-range power, for example. In the test that I did, that particular cam profile, and see, I don't have the specs that they did when they did these cams. I asked them to do something specific when I did that test, and I think that they did, but I don't have the opening and closing points for any of that because there were no cam cards with those custom cams. But in that case, that camshaft did better with a tighter LSA. That's not a universal thing. What if the cam already has the right LSA? And we're not even talking about that correctly, because it's not LSA. It's the opening and closing points of the cam. I mean, there's so much there. People that think that you just need to tighten the LSA don't understand camshafts. That's not the right way to look at a camshaft. What would it take for you to replicate the 3.4 liter 4-cylinder blueprint LS engine? It would only take me knowing and then purchasing whatever that 4-cylinder industrial motor is that has and it's not, I don't think it's exact either, that has the right bore spacing, because you have to be able to put that head on there. And then you have to, after that, because that's all that they did is just bolted the head on. They didn't ever run that motor. It wasn't actually a working thing. It was a gee whiz piece, and it was cool. I mean, obviously everyone's talking about it, but I've asked them many times now for that industrial motor. Just give me that, and then I will make everything else work. But it's been no every time we've tried to do that. Yeah, chopping a V8 cam will not. I don't think that's going to work. Are no stall needed camshafts BS? No, they're not. Mild camshafts have a lot of them have the same idle vacuum as a stock camshaft. They have all the drivability of the stock camshaft. In fact, a lot of them make more torque even near the stall speed, maybe by a little bit, than a stock camshaft. So that camshaft will not need a converter change. And with tuning, I'm told by people that know more about tuning than I do, because I don't ever do that in the car, in the vehicle, that that specifically that Trek Norris cam, which has about 5 degrees of overlap, I think 5 or 6 or 4 or something, I don't know, something like that, has some overlap. And I'm told that you can make that work with a stock converter. I think it's going to be better with a converter in it, but I think that even a stock cam is going to be better with a converter in it. Would you want to do a test where you just test valve overlap in degrees, regardless of LSA? All you're doing then is testing different cams. You can't ever test a singular aspect of the cam, with the possible exception of lift. We could change the lift on the cam, but you're also changing the ramp rate of the lobe when you do that. So, and we should not think about camshafts in terms of individual things. You should not think of cams as just, does lift do it all? Does duration do it all? Does lobe separation angle do it all? Does lobe centerline angle do it all? Does overlap do it all? None of those do it all. All of those things do it all. BTR needs to make a narrower LSA for the 4.8. So you think a narrower than 107 is the way to go for a 4.8? That's not what the camshaft would be for a 4.8. That's not the direction that they need to take. They would change the valve events that the LSA might stay the same. I didn't put the engine size in that question. It's 100 over 454. 100 over 454. Wow. I meant to write, would the idle difference be noticeable compared to a stock 219 at 50 cam? There's going to be a difference in idle when you change the camshaft by 20 degrees. And that's what I think. That's where I think you are on the, I would think that a stock cam is going to be 200 or less, I would guess. South Australia, what's going on? I have a Summit 8706. $26,230. Looking for 1,000 horsepower. So what kind of boost do you have on that, Chris? Best recipe for 500 wheel horsepower LS3. For me, that would mean that you need to make 600 flywheel, and 600 flywheel on an LS3 is a good size camshaft, and ported heads would help, and a different intake manifold would help. Or you could also get 500 wheel horsepower with just a cam if you made it a manual trans and an open exhaust and an electric water pump. You probably would be at 500 at the tire. Off topic, is a 3,000 a 3,200 stall overkill for a Chupacabra cam? I think that that's more than you need, but it will definitely, it'll work. Are you going to try 5.3 superchargers on a 6.2? Can it be done? What 5.3 supercharger do we have? We have the little 3,800 blowers. No stall was needed in my 242, 258 cam. Is that because it's a manual transmission? It is all still the wrong cam. People want those silver bullet answers. Yeah. And I get that from the comments a lot. Oh, this thing is everything. This thing is everything. This thing is everything. No, because if it was everything, there wouldn't be all these other things. They would cease to exist. I didn't realize there was more to LSA than just LSA. But here's a test that I wanted to do, and I'll talk to the guys here about it. And I'm still thinking about doing it. Is I want to do another LSA cam test, and I think I'm going to. So I want to run at least 3 cams, maybe 4 cams, like I did in the last test. And I want to show what LSA does. But this time I'll have all of the specs, and then I want to do idle quality and all of these things. Because that's the other thing, is that if you were looking for power, then you would do one thing. If that's all that you cared about, and you didn't care about idle speed or converter usage or drivability or fuel mileage or anything, you would do one thing to a camshaft. But nobody that buys a camshaft does that. Almost nobody that's interested in buying a camshaft is all in on that. That's why people that sell cams sell so many cams that aren't that. In fact, they sell way more, all the cam manufacturers sell way more mild-ish daily driver cams than they sell race cams. Way more. So that's why this argument is, or this discussion about LSA, even if you could localize one thing or hone in on one specific aspect, you can't anyway. But if you could, even after you did that, you're still talking about a very tiny fraction of the number of people that are interested in that. And it's hard to get people to understand that. It's possible to have 3 cams made where the only difference is LSA. Yes, you can change the LSA, assuming that the core will accept that. And a lot of guys don't understand that that's also a thing. In fact, we went through that when I tried to have all of the cams change LSA by 4 degrees. We're changing other things when you do that. Can't just change the LSA. Other things are going to get affected. It's not just a number that's unto itself. Like, this number needs to be smaller, and then that equals more power. No, because when you made that number smaller, all of these other numbers also changed because they have to. What I would suggest anybody do is go on to Summit Racing Cam Calculator and put in cam numbers that you want in there from any sort of cam that you find on the thing, and then tighten up the LSA and see what happens. See what happens to the opening and closing points. See what happens to all that stuff. It's good information. Could you try the Titan King from Comp Cams? What is that? Is that a camshaft? How about some torque cams for 3800? The 3800, if it's the 3800 that's in all the front wheel drive stuff, is it the supercharged one or the NA one? Which one of those? There's lots of cams available for those. My first question looking for a cam is how much chop. That's the thing. That's one of the things. That's definitely, some guys could care less about what happens to the power curve. Like, they don't even really understand how to read that. They know they want chop though. Would an electric water pump be an advantage to add to my 5-liter rebuild? Yes, it would definitely make more power with an electric water pump than a mechanical pump. What is the best solid base for LSA supercharging a 5.3 Elm 7? I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean by, what is solid base? Expand on that, whatever that is. AI should be able to determine your perfect camshaft for these days. Nope, it cannot do that. Because the ideal cam is subjective. Go back and do some tests on old school TBI 350 motors. I would like to do that. Electric turbo demonstration would be cool. I've never even seen one of those other than on Formula One cars. Richard, have you seen the Edelbrock dual quad dual plane for LS engines? Looks different to the Holly. I don't think I have seen that. Front wheel drive, non-supercharged, 300 Series 2. Yeah, there's lots of cams available for those. You said, wow, about the 100 over 454. Yeah, we normally don't go that far, but I know guys have on the earlier blocks, and I don't know what the limit is. I'm not, I'm not the expert in big block Chevys. The only thing I know about torque curves is that of the cars I've owned, the LT4, my 21 ZL1 is my favorite one. Yeah, supercharged boosted stuff is definitely good. Is it worth doing heads with a cam or just the cam on a C7 Z06 LT4 trying to get 800 wheel horsepower? The cam should get you a long way on that. And then I hope you're running E85 on it. So, James, I'm going to scroll back up and see what's the best. There is no best one. So, what are you trying to achieve? With your LSA supercharger, how much power are you trying to make? We'll start with that. Someone with 100, 120 over 44, been running it for 10 years. That's good. I think you need heads, cam, pulley, and 85 to get to 800 wheel horsepower. That seems like a lot. What about a ported blower on that? Would that be necessary? Yeah, I might need a ported blower too. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I would think. I don't know how big the throttle inlet is into the blower on those. I don't have any experience with running the LSA blowers, but you need as big a throttle body and entry as you can on the blower. Should try rebuilding my LS. Where is the hole? Is it in the piston? Is it in the cylinder? If it's in the cylinder, you just need to get another motor. LT4 blower is pretty small. In the piston, I would be surprised if it put a hole in the piston. Did it also damage the cylinder head? Normally they do. How's our pole doing? 52%. Yeah, I haven't seen it. When you drop a nut in there, or a nut or a bolt, and if it runs for any period of time, it usually damages all kinds of stuff, even before it gets lodged into the piston, which it can get just hammered into the piston and put a hole in or break the piston or whatever. But if it does that, usually it'll I would be worried about it bending the rod and hurting the crank and hurting the wall and hurting the head. And so, Andy, are you going to have a custom cam ground then, with where you get to pick your LSA? Yeah, blackout. You should take it apart and at least see what's in there. I mean, you have to pull it out anyways. Jason, yes, a 2-bolt block can handle lots of horsepower. You can go to the wrecking yard and you can try to find a 4-bolt block if that's what you want. All the Gen 5 and Gen 6 is 4-bolt, but they don't have provisions for water pumps though. But the Gen 6 is going to be a hydraulic roller, which is nice. With your 4.3 V8 test, did you conclude that the baby V8 makes better torque and power than a similar capacity 4.3 liter V6, or was it the same? When you have a V8, an 8-cylinder, or a motor with more cylinders, has the potential to make more power than a motor with fewer cylinders of the same displacement, only because of head flow, or this is one of the reasons, because of head flow. If the V6 head flows the same as the V8 head, you have more of those flowing that amount on the V8. So in a sense, that head flows more per cylinder. So you have the ability to make more power. Head flow, the more cylinders that you have, like on this V10 for the modular Ford deal, it has the ability, even though it has, it still has limited head flow, but we've added cylinders. So you're just adding more power by doing that. It's the same thing with a V6 versus a V8 deal. When valve tumbling media ends up in an intake port and goes through the top of the piston, the cylinder wall gets wrecked. Yeah, I've sucked in a small, I don't know, it's probably a 5/16 or something. Probably maybe even smaller than that, quarter 20 or something, into my Datsun Z motor, and it banged around in there. It ran, and I shut it off because it's making lots of noise. And I took the head off, and then I just take a sanding wheel to the piston and to the chamber and put it back together, and it ran fine. So what you're saying is we measure head flow per cylinder, but the total volume of air is increased with the additional cylinders. Yes, if you look at the airflow potential or the horsepower potential of a given amount of airflow, that formula that we use. So if we take a 300 CFM head on a V8, then it could make 600 horsepower. But we don't double it if we're doing that on a 4-cylinder. Then it can only make 300 horsepower with the same cylinder head. Or on a V8, or on a V12, it's 1.5 times that. So it becomes, or 2.5 times that. So it becomes more and more, because what you're doing is looking at the potential power output of each cylinder. And then when you have more cylinders, you just make more power. I must have missed something. Why a smaller Truck Norris cam for the 4.8? At that point, why not just use one of the hotter OEM cams? Well, none of the OEM cams do what a Truck Norris cam does. None of them are even close. All of the OEM cams, if you look at the video that I have up on the 5.3, where we ran all of the stock cams and we compared them to the stock truck cam, the 190, 191 cam that's in an LM7, all of the other factory cams lose power through a lot of the curve compared to that. They make more power at the peak, but that's not normally what you want on a 4.8 if guys looking for good average power production. I like Howard's cams are running one. Andy, you should do what you think is right, man. Just pick the cam based on what you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to achieve idle quality, or trying to achieve power, or trying to achieve some sort of combination of that? 1 minute. So we're split on the BTR question, 50-50. Yes and no. It's for the smaller cam. James, 400 horsepower NA from an LM7 is just a camshaft. Sounds like a truck cam would be better for a turbo engine. Yeah, the truck Norris cam's a really good one for turbo. Isn't the truck Norris cam quite a small duration? It's 212 on the intake. Have you seen the new LS 4-cylinder engine? Yeah, that's not a real thing. That's a mock-up motor that Blueprint did for the SEMA show and for the PRI show. That's just an industrial 4-cylinder that they bolted an LS head on and then promoted it as something more than that. Did it end up not proceeding with the Barra 6-cylinder? I haven't done anything with those. They're still sitting. Yeah, I'd like to. I've been trying to get a hold of one of those 4-cylinders so I could actually make that work, but I've not had good luck yet. On that note, it is time to go. But I will be back tomorrow morning. Time to get some project motivation going, I think. Because I need some motivation. I need to get some stuff going. I might have to take a road trip here pretty quick. I will see you guys all tomorrow.